Hey everyone, for Friday, March 26, 2020, welcome to episode 59 of the Ginger and the Beard podcast. I'm AJ, aka The Ginger.
And I'm Reese, aka The Beard. And on this week's show, we're joined by Kevin McElroy, founder and head brewer of Random Row Brewing in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you for joining us, Kevin. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's going well. Hanging out here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Ready to talk about beer, brewing, breweries, anything else you guys want to talk about.
Cool. Tattoos. Yeah, awesome, man. Well,
tattoos, yeah.
Thanks for joining us, man. We're definitely glad we can make this happen. And I think it was the Windswell that actually reviewed on an episode or two. I lose count, like 3 episodes ago or whatever. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But you actually reached out to us after hearing our review of it to kind of explain a little bit, give us some more insight into how that one was made. So I appreciate you doing that as well. And, just to kind of jump right in, we're excited to learn more about Random Row Brewing. So can you give us the Random Row elevator pitch? What makes you guys unique?
Yeah, so, Random Row Brewing Company, we're a small taproom brewery in Charlottesville, Virginia. We like to think of ourselves as like Charlottesville's community brewery. We're a lot smaller than the typical brewery out there. Like we're distributing, we're getting ourselves out there, but we're still, if you come out to us, everyone like kind of asks like, you guys like do everything here? Like, yeah, it's really small, so we're able to kind of do some fun things, rotate our taps in the tap room. And we're just just starting to try and grow out into distribution. So we're less than 5 years old now. So we're still relatively new. And, when you think about it, we're just, trying to get out there a little bit more now.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good, man. I noticed that the 5-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon, right? September?
Yeah, it'll be 5 years in September.
Awesome.
Yep. It's kind of hard to believe.
Do you remember what day in September?
I think it was September 16th, I think, was the day
Nice.
that we opened. I remember that Friday. That was a pretty crazy day. We opened at like 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, but like people were like walking in at like noon. And I just remember thinking that night, like, man, if we could just like be like this busy, like every day, like we're going to like be super successful. And like,
Yeah.
I think we did that night in sales, like what we do on a typical week now. So if we had done that every day, like I probably would have retired by now, but like it wore off a little bit of us being new, but we're still doing pretty well, even all things considered.
Nice. Well, I'm sure the success will continue. We were wondering where the name Random Row came from. Is that any relation to a type of malt or anything like that?
No. So I'm guessing you're thinking of, so 2-row malt is like kind of like the standard base malt. But no, actually, the name Random Row is it's a historical neighborhood reference. So in Charlottesville, where we are, we're kind of like, so you got the University of Virginia, which was like, the city of Charlottesville was kind of built around the university. We're about a mile away from UVA. And that neighborhood that we're in so UVA was kind of built on like a grid, with all the streets. And once you got a little bit outside of the university, the terrain kind of got a little rockier, a little more hilly, and that grid kind of went into like all different directions. So the streets went into random rows essentially.
Yeah.
So that the name was like from like the 1800s. It's like a really old neighborhood reference. And then people that live in Charlottesville now will probably be more familiar with the neighborhood Vinegar Hill, which is what Random Row then became known as. And now they ended up, that used to be like a all residential neighborhoods. And in the mid 1900s, they tore all that down and built the downtown mall. So where we are was kind of like on the edge of what was the Random Row neighborhood.
Okay. So they don't actually
Yeah.
refer to it as Random Row anymore. It's Vinegar Hill. And it's more or less, you guys just picked it as like a callback to the historical roots of the area.
Yeah, and like it's funny because a lot of people like will come. There was a Random Row restaurant not like around the corner from us, and it's funny because people will come in like people that are like in their 50s and 60s, and they're like, "Oh, are you guys like, are you the Random Row restaurant?" I'm like, no, that's just like that was a restaurant. Like it's actually and those people didn't even know that it was like a neighborhood reference. So we would have to like tell them like, oh, it's actually like a neighborhood thing. It's not like the Random Row restaurant wasn't like the original Random Row, but apparently the Random Row restaurant was the place to be in the 80s and 90s. So
Cool.
I've heard some stories about that place.
Nice.
Well, it certainly leads to a conversation starter. It sounds like helping people understand, probably a lot of people are local when they're coming into Random, the brewery. So, help them to get the roots.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'd like to hear that.
We've talked a lot about like trying to find some of the old Random Row restaurant bartenders and like bring them in for like a Random Row night.
That'd be cool.
I'm sure we could bring in a big crowd for that, but hasn't come to fruition yet.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, how does it pan out like being that close to the university? Like, do you get a lot of college students? And I mean, craft brewing is all the rage these days. Obviously, some of those kids are too young to hang out at the brewery, but
right.
Do you get a lot of traffic from the school?
I mean, I think the majority of undergrad students are probably hanging out at the corner bars. There's a strip right outside of the university called the Corner, where you can get your cheap, domestic beers.
$2.
We do get a good, yeah. We do get a pretty decent, I think, grad student crowd that comes out. We're a little too far away for like undergrads to like kind of walk to us. Like it's certainly walkable, but like there's so many other bars that they can walk to that are closer. But the hospital, I mean, the university hospital is right there, and I think we get a lot of business from them as well. So I think it's more like grad students and young professionals that are coming out
awesome
to the brewery.
Nice.
The kids that have had a taste of the good stuff and not looking for
Right,
the cheapest.
Right.
Man, I can remember those days, like the $2 well drinks and, whatever was the cheapest thing, give it to me.
Oh yeah. They'll learn eventually.
Yeah, they'll get there.
Give them some time. They'll figure
Once
it
they
out.
have a job.
Yeah, a little bit of extra cash.
Right.
So changing it up a little bit, one common theme that we're seeing among some of the local brewers is that they all had other careers in industry professions before brewing. So your story fits that pattern, and you previously worked in the medical industry. It sounds like you're still working in the medical industry as a cardiovascular perfusionist. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us what led you to this? Well, I guess it's not technically a career change, but what led you into brewing as well as
career addition?
Yeah, career addition.
Yeah. So we moved to Charlottesville. I guess 11 years ago now. It's been that we've been here, and that's when I started homebrewing as a hobby. It's kind of a funny story because I was I'm fairly avid golfer growing up. I played golf in high school, and for I guess it would have been my 30th birthday. We had just moved to Charlottesville, and my sisters, I have three sisters. Growing up, I had three sisters, and they all wanted me to get me something for my 30th birthday. So I was like, oh, I could use like a new pitching wedge. And then I was like, well, maybe instead of doing that, I'll ask them to get me like a homebrew starter kit, because I was like kind of interested in like, starting to brew at home. So I decided instead of getting the pitching wedge that I would have them get me a homebrew kit. So they ended up getting it for me. I ended up going to we have a local homebrew shop. It's actually like a quarter mile from the brewery. It's right next door to us. So I ended up going there to pick up my first homebrew kit to make some beer. And I ended up running into my neighbor who I didn't know brewed at home either. And I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm getting some stuff to brew. I was like, oh, I'm getting your stuff to brew too. He's like, oh, like, I didn't know you were a brewer. I was like, well, yeah, I'm not. Like, I'm just trying to get into it now. He was like, well, what's your plan? I was like, well, I've got like this little pot. I'm going to put it on my stove top in the kitchen. He's like, no. Don't get your stuff. Come over to my house. I've got a whole setup. You can borrow my stuff, and then you can, we'll brew together, hang out. You can take it back home and ferment it at home and do the rest. But you do not want to be brewing on your stovetop. I was like, all right, cool, sounds good. So went over there, brewed. The first beer that I brewed was it was actually I think it was a Dogfish Head 60-minute like clone that
Nice.
I kind of just like picked all the ingredients. I had researched it, and it wasn't a kit. It was just I ended up picking up all the stuff for it, and brewed it over there, brought it home. Like it actually turned out drinkable, which I know I hear a lot of stories where people are like, oh, I tried brewing once and like it was terrible. I couldn't even drink it. So it came out pretty good. And from there, like I just fell in love with it with the first time brewing, and from there just kind of snowballed into like getting new equipment and doing more and more brewing at home. And then at one point, like, so I brewed at home for 5 years before we decided to start the brewery, and it was the story. Do you want me to continue the story? Like, this is gonna like take up a lot of time here,
man.
but
yeah, definitely go for it.
So my business partner Bob, I worked with him at the hospital. He's a physician. He also was into home brewing, and he had some of my beers. This is, we're talking 3 years down the road now from my first time making something, and he was like, we should start a brewery. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like that's what everyone wants to start a brewery. It sounds great. Yeah, let's do it. I was kind of like, you're crazy. He's like, no, really. Like I know people that can we can get together, and so. 2 years, fast forward 2 years later of him doing this over and over to me, like, no, really, like, let's start a brewery. So finally he convinced me to say like, all right, this might be something that we can do. So we ended up inviting some people over to his basement. I brewed 5 beers, had them on tap in his basement. We pitched our idea to start a brewery, and a week later we had we had the funding to get started. So
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
So
I feel like all good breweries start in a basement. Like, wasn't it was it Dogfish Head or was it oh man, this name's escaping me now. Fat Tire. Or not Fat, New Belgium. One of those I can't remember which one it is. They talked about starting in a basement as well. So
they probably both did.
Probably.
And I actually
a basement or a garage.
And I actually the first beer I brewed, I can say I actually brewed it in a bathtub. I didn't technically brew it in a bathtub, but I fermented it in a bathtub. So I can tell people like the first beer I made it in a bathtub. And people get a kick out of that too.
So it fermented in the bathtub, or did it?
Shower. Well, it was like
your carboy was sitting.
Carboy sitting in the back, because I knew like if this thing explodes, like I don't want it like exploding in my closet. Like I want it exploding in the bathtub. Like
smart.
But, yeah. So technically, it was made in a bathtub.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool,
Breakfast
man.
of champions.
Exactly. Well, we're glad that he encouraged you to do it. I'm sure that's probably a weird thing. Like, well, shoot, man. I mean, like me and Reeves were like, dude, we should start a podcast. Like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Like, we're just like joking about it. Like, not really, man. I think we could do it. I think we could start a podcast. And like, well, I don't know, it was like a month later or something, we recorded our first episode. So it's pretty cool how just a halfway joke sometimes leads to a real thing. In your case, a full-blown business. So pretty awesome, man. So
and AJ mentioned last year before his birthday that he wanted to always like brew. So I bought him a beer kit for his birthday and bought myself one too. So we actually brewed our first beers last year.
What was it?
Mine. I have one left actually, and it's gotten better with age. It was a milk stout, and
okay,
not bad. Definitely palatable.
I can't even remember what mine was now. It's like some kind of a pale ale. It doesn't taste good anymore. It tasted good for a while at first. It doesn't taste good anymore. But it was
pale
a fun
ale,
experience.
like you want to drink fresh. A stout, you can kind of age a little bit more.
Yeah, makes sense. And ours were the kits, like, and it was also for my 30th birthday. So
AJ, you should start a brewery. I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna start now, and then every other week I'm gonna hit you with that.
Yeah. Well, if it tells you anything,
keep hitting him until he does it.
We haven't brewed it. We haven't done it again since then. And that was the easy. We did it the easy way. So
I'm gonna send you another kit.
Yeah. I've got one. My mother-in-law bought me a refill pack for that craft to brew kit. So I just gotta commit and do it one day. But
we gotta get that snowball rolling. You know.
I know. Yeah.
Pushing it.
We focus on one passion project at a time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we read at one point you won an award in the Home Brewers Cup for an Imperial Stout, right? So did that kind of have an impact on your decision to kind of take that passion full time? Like, did that kind of help realize, like, okay, I actually am pretty good at this, so maybe we could do it?
For sure, yeah. So that was actually like, I think that was like my first year of brewing. Like it was relatively fresh in my home brewing career. And there's actually a pretty cool story behind that beer. We brew that beer every year now, and release it in December. So that's the Keegan Imperial Stout. And it would have been 2011 that I brewed that for the first time. And so the story is, I had, so my wife was pregnant with our first child, whose name is Keegan. So the beer wasn't named until after it was made. No, that's not true. Let me back up a little bit. So I had plans to make this Imperial Stout and bought all the ingredients. My wife was 7 months pregnant. Went and got everything ready to go, and she went into labor several weeks early. So I had already made the yeast starter, was like planning on brewing the next day, and that night she went into labor. So had the baby. Baby Keegan was relatively healthy. She spent a couple days in the ICU, but is perfectly healthy now. So I ended up brewing that beer about a week after because I had already kind of started the process, so I couldn't just like put it off too long. I was like, well, I got this yeast, it's ready to go. Like, kind of have to, brew this now. So I ended up brewing it, entered it into it's called the Dominion Cup. It's the Virginia State Homebrew competition. They do it every year. There were 500 entries total, I think, overall. And Keegan Imperial Stout won second overall. It won first place in the stout category and second place in best of show, which was like, nothing I was expecting. I was like, wow, I've only been brewing for like less than a year, and I made this beer. Like, it's pretty good, but like, I never expected that. So that was kind of like the point where I was like, well, maybe I could like turn this into a career. Like I at least somewhat know what I'm doing if I can, make a beer that can win get second in a competition with that many entries. So we make that beer every year now, and we release it on Keegan's birthday, which is December 29th.
Man,
and
that's cool, dude.
I've since had 2 boys after Keegan. And they started, once they were able to talk, they started asking why she had a beer named after her, and they didn't. So now we have, now we barrel age the Keegan to make the Jameson, which is very confusing because people always, think, oh, barrel aged Jameson. Oh, you barrel age it in a Jameson barrel. So, no,
Right.
Like, it's not. That's
coincidence.
That is what he was named after, but it is not the barrel that the beer is aged in. I would love to, and I've actually looked into like getting a Jameson barrel to age it in, but like I don't think you can get them. I mean, you can get them, but like it's not like they don't have a lot of those Jameson barrels over here. They're mostly over in Ireland. So to get one over here wouldn't be the easiest or cheapest thing to do. I bet you one day I'll probably get a Jameson barrel, hopefully, and age it in there. And then Cal, our youngest, his beer has kind of been like changed quite a bit because the first time we did it as a sour stout. So we actually took the final runnings of the Keegan Imperial Stout, which basically means like, trying not to get too technical here, but like the leftovers of the running. So, when we brew, we, put all the hot water in with all the grains, mix it all up, and then you take that water, it's called wort at that point, once it absorbs the sugar, and you move it into the kettle and boil it. Well, what's left over in there's still some sugar because there's still grains in there, but it's like a lot weaker.
Yeah.
So what we did was we took that leftover basically and made a sour stout with that. And it's like 5% as opposed to 10.5%, which the Keegan is. We did that once, and then the second time we tried to do the sour cow, we screwed it up and had the temperature controller on the tank was never turned on, so It got way too hot. Yeast got out of control, ruined the beer. So I was like, all right, well, we need to do like something else with the cow. So we ended up getting a different barrel and putting it in that barrel to do a second barrel aged beer. Turns out people are more excited about barrel aged beers than they are about sour stouts anyways.
Yeah.
Surprise there. So now we're doing the Keegan is just the Imperial Stout. And this year we're doing just two. This year and last year we're just doing like two different types of bourbon barrels for the Jameson and the Cal. So we already released and went through the Jameson this year, and then we'll be releasing the Cal in the fall, as that's going to sit for a couple more months in the bourbon barrel.
Are all of your techniques self-taught?
I mean, internet self-taught. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of research, but like I don't have any formal training, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, no, It sounds like you've done a pretty great job just kind of figuring things out on your own. A lot of people that we talk to have gone through like apprenticeships or, legitimate, either college courses or legitimate trainings or something like that. And it sounds like you're just figuring things out as you go, but you're doing it. You're actually doing it.
Yeah. We actually.
Yeah, I mean, by the time
sorry, go ahead, Kevin. I was going to say, we interviewed Andy Rathman at St. George Brewing recently. And we actually asked him that question. We're like, what advantage or disadvantage do you think there is to like doing formal training as opposed to people who come up through home brewing? And he was like, absolutely none. He was like, people who homebrew and these more modern brewers, he's like, they come up with, they're more experimental. They come up with all these wild ideas. And like, it's so true, man. Like people, you can learn anything you want on the internet these days. Right. And like, I mean, obviously your beer speaks for itself. I'm drinking actually right now while we're talking about it, the Supernova from Random Row. Highly recommend you guys check this one out. I had the Mosaic up in the poll as well, and I was hoping kind of the Mosaic one because I'm a huge Mosaic fan. There it is. Kevin's got it right there, and Mosaic has won a few different awards also. So I was kind of hoping that the polls pulled through for me, but they everyone voted for Supernova, which I mean I'm not mad about it because it's delicious. For a guy like myself who's all about the hops, this has a excellent blend of hops in it. It tastes delicious. So kudos to you, man.
Appreciate it.
I know I'm kind of going off of the list that we had sent over, but I'm just very curious because I've never asked anybody how to make a sour, and you've just explained that you've made a sour stout, which I've never had before. Could you give us like
Yeah,
the
not
cliff
too many of
notes?
those out there.
Right, yeah. Could you give us like how do you do it, right? The cliff notes on how to make a sour stout? What is the magical trick to make a sour?
So there's different ways that you can do it. There's the more traditional way, and then there's what's called kettle sours. Um, so kettle sours. Well, we'll start with traditional sours because we don't make traditional sours. Traditional sours, you're actually souring the beer in the fermenter. So you're going through the process of mashing, boiling, cooling, putting it into a fermenter, and then you're adding yeast and bacteria. Um, the problem with that, or not necessarily the problem, but the logistical complicating factor there is that you're left with a live culture beer. So you actually have live bacteria in the beer, which is a problem if you want to put a non-bacteria beer on that tank or in that draft line or anything that beer is touching. So you're dealing with a contamination factor with live sours. So that's why a lot of times you'll see you won't necessarily see a lot of live sours on tap, but you'll see them in bottles. You'll see them bottle aged, and those beers will actually age well. They will develop character with aging just because it's alive. The beer is alive. There's live bacteria in there. So at Random Row, we're kind of limited because we don't really have the resources to have all of that separate space, separate tanks, separate lines for that. So that's why you'll see a lot of places, or every now and then you'll see a place that has like a sour house, like in Charlottesville, Three Notch Brewing Company. They had a sour house where that's where they made their sour beers, and then like they made all their other beers in a completely different location because you don't want to cross contaminate, because then you end up with all your beers are sour beers, and you don't necessarily want that all the time.
Yeah, right.
So kettle sours is kind of like the fast way of making a sour beer, and you're taking out the contamination factor. So with a kettle sour beer, you're mashing same way you will, and then you're going to move all the wort into the boil kettle. We'll then bring that wort up to a boil for 5 minutes, just to kind of to pasteurize the beer, to kill anything that might be in there initially, and then we cool it down to about 100 degrees. Then we add the bacteria to the kettle, so the boil kettle, and we'll let that sit for a couple of days. So typically we'll inoculate the wort on a Friday, and then we'll come back on Monday, and that in that 3 days that the bacteria will have done its thing. We'll check the pH. The pH will be down to where we want it to be, and then we boil it. So boil it, kills everything. Everything's dead.
Oh, so that stops the souring then once you boil it.
Stops the souring, yeah. So the bacteria have already produced that lactic acid. It's already soured the beer. You already got a tart wort at that point, but you don't want any of that going anywhere past the kettle. So you boil it, then process it the same way you would add your yeast, and you've got a beer that's sour but doesn't have bacteria in it.
Okay, so did you do the initial before you added the specific bacteria that you wanted in there? You did a boil before that, and then you let it sit with the bacteria for a few days, and then you did the second boil to stop the lactic acid from continuing to process. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So
you can add your hops then afterwards, and just like you would normally boil it for an hour, you do that after the bacteria have done their thing.
And that would help it from becoming infected, I guess, again. And
it kills everything, yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've never actually had somebody explain that to me, so thank you. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so if you have like Gosa's, Berliner Weiss, those are the two like pretty popular styles that are generally produced in that method. But if you have like a complex like sour that really like really puckers, like you can tell the difference. Like a kettle sour is definitely very kind of like single dimensional. Like it's tart, it hits you right here. But if you have like a traditionally soured beer, like it's very complex. Like got a lot of different. But you're taking months and months, if not years, for that to like develop. So
Yeah. I had a
yeah.
I had a Goza from, it was the Super 8. I think it was Dogfish Head did it, if I remember correctly, and it was very light. And so like when I've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about them, during the podcast, I say like anybody that's just getting into this, like start with a Goza and don't go straight to like a farmhouse ale or
Right.
like drink the brewery, Turo or that line
Sure.
of beers, because it's for even me, I had one this past weekend and I was like, I haven't had a sour in a while. I'm
Yeah.
not on my game right now. Yeah.
Totally.
We
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, I always tell people like when they come in like, oh, it's a sour. Like, I don't know. Like, and I like to, our sours, I typically like to describe as being tart. I feel like tart is like a less like strong word than sour, like it's got like a
yeah.
nice tartness to it. It's definitely Gosas and Berliners are definitely like the entry level sour beers, for sure.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're seeing a lot of like fruited sours out there now too, like where it's just a ton of fruit in there, and the background is a little tart. I mean that those are the type of beers that you can, and then there's like a wide range of like where you can go from there as far as the complex sours out there.
Yeah, Reese, you had the Firestone Walker Bretta Tangerine. Literally, like your face crunched up. Whatever,
That's it.
whatever they did with that one, it definitely got a hold of you.
Yeah. So I assumed that wasn't a kettle. I would have, now that I understand the difference, it's
Was it in like a big 22-ounce bottle or something?
that one wasn't
Or was
actually
it?
it was in its own separate bottle. I couldn't buy it as like a 4-pack or a 6-pack or anything, but it wasn't the large format. It
So it was
was,
like a single 12-ounce bottle.
yeah, it
Oh
was like
yeah,
this kind of.
yeah. And
Yeah,
you paid like $12 for it or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That was
It's one
not
of
made.
those.
That was not made in 2 weeks. That was probably took little bit longer and a little more effort to make, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, probably. It was good. It was just the first the first sip. It's like taking a sip of liquor. You got to get
Yeah,
past that first
and
that
then
initial
you
bite.
adjust to it a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
awesome, man. Well, so we talked about Charlottesville a little bit earlier and how you're close to the school and things like that. I've been through Charlottesville. My wife and I actually even considered moving to Charlottesville at one point just because it's got such a like big city but also small town vibe at the same time. Like we're from, I told you before we started the show, we're from Lexington area, Buena Vista, Virginia, really small town. And so moving out here to Virginia Beach, it's like, for us, this is a big city, right? And well, it was
Hmm.
at first. I mean, we've obviously normalized since 2012, but looking at now, especially we're in this remote working environment, and we could kind of move wherever we want to. We've actually considered moving to Charlottesville because it's such a nice, quaint sort of area, but also like a lot of stuff there, a lot of breweries, cideries, wineries, stuff to do for the kids. But I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
what's the brewing community like there? Beer culture in terms of like people who enjoy drinking the beer, but also like how close knit is the brewing community? Because you guys are really a really short drive away from the Brew Ridge Trail, which has a ton of breweries on there. And I feel like
Mhm.
people are just kind of popping up all over that area. Is it becoming a pretty good scene there?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I was telling you earlier that I grew up in Virginia Beach, and we when I so I, before I came to Charlottesville, we lived in Philadelphia for a couple of years, and my job in healthcare brought me to Charlottesville, um, and it was always going to be like a 1 year, 2 year plan. We're like, oh, until we can, get back to Virginia Beach, and we were here for a year, and we're like, kind of like it here.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
we can stay here. Like, this is a pretty cool city. Like, this would be a great place to raise kids. So we love Charlottesville. Yeah, I mean, this place is awesome, and I couldn't think of a better place to set up our business here. Brewing community has been awesome. From the home brewing community when I first started brewing here, and just like we have it's called Camera, the Charlottesville area Masters of Real Ale homebrew club that has a pretty big group that get together once a month and share each other's beers and talk
That's
about
awesome.
beer and sharing experiences and things like that. And I'd kind of met some of the guys, the brewers here through that, and just visiting breweries, and like everyone's like just so welcoming. I mean, I'm sure it's probably like this in most places, but just getting to know the brewers here before I even started the brewery, and we now have the Charlottesville Ale Trail, so it's kind of like the Brewerage Trail, but in
Yeah.
Charlottesville. So it's a group where all the Charlottesville breweries kind of get together every now and then, and we have an app now where you can go from brewery to brewery and check in at each one, and if you go to each one, you get like some stupid little trinket prize, but it's like whatever. I'm gonna go to all the breweries just to get this keychain bottle opener, but yeah, I mean, when we started Random Row, like I obviously had never done any kind of commercial brewing before, so like all this was new to me. Like the concepts are all the same, it all makes sense to me, but like I'm dealing with these 200-gallon tanks and brew kettles as opposed to 5 gallons that I'm used to. So um, I had several times where I had something going on, and I'd just like make a phone call to one of the guys down the street, be like, hey man, like I need you to come over here and help me with this because I don't know what's going on. And it's just it's a tight knit community here. I mean, we're obviously competitors, and we all understand that. So there's that, but like we're kind of all in it together. We understand that it's like we're trying to build up uh, craft beer, and we kind of feel like if we can all do well, that like if one of us does well, it kind of can raise us all up, and um, we're in that sense like it's we're all very willing to help each other out. We haven't actually been able to do like collaborations much lately, just with everything that's been going on, but we've done a lot of collaborations with all the local breweries around here as well. So yeah, it's a great community here as far as that goes.
Nice. That's cool. It's good to see you guys working together. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like you can see that in, like, historically, people helping each other out, everybody benefits from it. And, there's always that competitiveness, but yeah, just getting the whole area better is probably going to benefit everyone in the long run. So that's really cool. So we read on your website, that one of your core values is supporting local, and certainly the name Random Row kind of lends itself to that historical roots. It sounds like you being involved in the community with the other breweries, it lends itself to that. So what kind of strategy or approach do you guys take to honor that value? Are all of your ingredients sourced locally?
So not all of our ingredients are sourced locally. So for one, like hops are kind of, I think it's fair to say, impossible to source locally here. The majority of American hops are grown in the Pacific Northwest. They're now starting to be grown more like in the Midwest. Climate in Virginia, they're trying to start growing hops in Virginia, and they are growing some now, but the climate here is just not ideal for growing hops. We do work with a local maltster, Murphy and Rood, and they're actually in Charlottesville, and they source their grain locally, Virginia, some North Carolina now, but it's all malted in Charlottesville. So our method IPA, we use exclusively local malt, and it's still kind of a challenge as far as pricing goes to go local, completely local, just because they're it is a little more expensive to use the local malt. So we when we do some one-offs, we'll use local malt. But for our like bigger beers that we're distributing, we're sourcing that from most of the U.S. grain that we're sourcing is from the Midwest as well. But again, like
Makes
Virginia, Virginia is definitely like kind of stepping it up and putting money into funding programs that are going to develop locally grown malt and hops as well. So like there's hope for the future that like we'll be able to, there'll be more access to locally grown Virginia products. We use our yeast we get from they're actually up in Northern Virginia, Jasper Yeast Labs. So we do source our yeast locally, or
that's the one
locally.
It's actually right around the corner from me. I'm pretty sure it's like
okay,
not even 10 miles away. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the city that they're in, but I know they're up that way. For me, it's like Northern Virginia. It's all Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think one thing that I didn't realize before we talked to also another maltster, Sebastian from Epiphany Craft Malts, is like how much like buying from a local maltster supports like local farmers, and those farmers support like, so it's all this like giant interchained like web of businesses, which is so cool to like think about.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about like I reference again from Lexington, Virginia, Devil's Backbone has an outpost there in Lexington, and so I toured their brewery, and they talked about how the grains they use, the spent grains essentially get sent back to farmers in that area where they're using the water from that area. So if I drink a Devil's Backbone brew, now I'm drinking the water from my hometown. I'm supporting farmers back. So it's just cool to think about that kind of stuff. Like, when people seem like really snobby about drinking craft beer, and they're like, I'd rather drink craft beer versus like, Anheuser-Busch, even though I know Anheuser-Busch now owns Devil's Backbone, but just an example. It's cool to support local by buying something like Random Row, to know you're supporting, a smaller community of people, especially in a time like now when you've got COVID and that just screws up everything. So super cool to hear about.
Yeah, we actually so talking about spent grains, we have our spent grains picked up by a farmer as well, and it's funny because at one point he was doing he would go to like the farmers markets and like sell his pork, and at one point he was doing like a little trailer, and he came to the brewery once and like was selling like his sandwiches with pork, and we were like, well, this pork came from a pig who ate the spent grains of the beer that you're drinking right now. Think about that.
Oh man, full circle, like circle of life.
Full circle. Yeah. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
it's so cool, man.
It is. It's really cool.
Crack up my mosaic here.
Nice. So, it sounds like you've come up with some creative new beers and had a lot of success. Can you walk us through the process of brewing a completely new beer from concept to canning? How long does it take? And, how do you know when you have a winner?
I'm not the one that decides if it's a winner. Yeah, I mean, so, when we're deciding to make a new beer, we probably, I guess like probably every other month at this point we can make a new beer. It was kind of fun in the beginning, like when we first opened, because like every beer was a new beer, so it was like every time we made a beer it was a new beer, and it was great. And now it's like we'd make a beer and be like, oh, you have to make that beer again. We're like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
make that beer again. Oh, you got to make this beer again. All right, we'll make that beer again. And then it's like, all right, well, like do you want us to make any new beers? Because like everyone's asking us to make the beers that we've already made before. So the older the brewery gets, like it seems like the less often times that you get to like make new beers, because you got to make the beers that you've made before that people want to bring back.
Right.
But so like a lot of things go into factor when we're deciding to make a new beer. So like I do the calendar. I'll go on the calendar and be like, all right, we need to make more mosaic. We need to make seasonal. Like it's time for Hefeweizen. It's time for to make our Maibach because it's almost May. And then every now and then there's like, all right, we need to make something here. Like, well, what are we gonna make? Like, oh, maybe we can make a new beer. So at that point, I'm like, all right, well, what are we gonna make? Like, let's look at the menu. What do we have? Like, is there a hole in the menu that we need, like something dark or something sour or something a lager? So find something that'll fill that hole, and then just kind of look at if there are any trends. Like I like to kind of keep with the trends, like what people are drinking. Obviously, I want to make something that people are going to want to drink. It's kind of important.
Right.
So, at that point, pick out a style, really go with the style, and then, come up with a malt, which is, in my opinion, don't let my, local maltster hear me say this, but like, that's the easy part. Like, it's just malt. Come up with something. And then, if it's an IPA, then we're actually brewing a new beer Friday. It's going to be a new New England IPA, where I decided to just go with like an experimental hop. So we're going to be using a hop that I've never used before, and I had to come up with a label for it and a description for a beer that I've never made or tasted, obviously. That's a little bit of that can be a challenge when you're like, trying to describe it before you've even made it.
Yeah. Is it an unnamed hop? You said experimental.
It's it's
weird code names.
It's currently HBC 586, I believe.
Nice.
Is the name of it. So it's the hop breeding company. They just give it a number.
Yeah.
And then if it succeeds well enough, it gets a trademark name. But just reading the description of it, I was like, oh, that sounds like a pretty cool hop. Let's try it and see how it goes. And I can come back to that because that's kind of a cool story of what that beer is going to be like. But I'll finish answering your question. At that point, we're like, once we've come up with a recipe, we're probably 2 weeks out from brewing it because we have to get the ingredients. Order all the ingredients, get them in, brew the beer, and then you're talking 2 or 3 weeks for the beer to be finished. So I'd say minimum 1 month from concept to draft, and typically it's probably more like 2 months. To get it on the schedule, get everything ordered, get it brewed, get it finished, and get it in kegs or cans.
Nice. So awesome. During that process, I'm sure you have somebody that designs the cans for you pretty much and gets that all worked out.
That's the other hard part is coordinating with our designer. So we have a designer who does all of our cans, and I'm like, you're the creative one, like just like make something cool. But like designers don't like you to say that. They want you to give them a little bit more direction.
Right.
So then I get together with my team, our small team of the guys at the brewery, the guys and girls at the brewery, and try and kind of come up with a concept. And we send it to our designer. So the beer that we're doing Friday, we have not yet we've almost finalized the label, but not quite finalized it. So we're calling this Turn the Page IPA. It was kind of like a COVID themed, moving on to the next thing. Hopefully things are getting better, kind of like themed beer. But then we incorporated the experimental hop idea. So what we're doing with this beer is the label is just going to be, it's just going to say like we were using experimental hops for this beer. And each time we make this beer, it's going to be with a different experimental hop. And what we're going to do is on the bottom of the can. So if you look on the bottom of the cans, I can't tip it too much because there you go. You can see, you always see the date printed on the bottom of the can. So we always like kind of put something fun underneath the date. I don't know if you look in what's on the bottom of Supernova or Windswell. What does it say? Does it say anything
let's
on
see,
either
Supernova. This one does not. Canned on L3. That's a date and time.
Nothing
see,
Windswell.
Windswell.
Say anything?
It says get vaccinated.
There you go. So
Yeah.
we try and put something like fun underneath it. So what we're gonna do with the Turn the Page is we're gonna write the name of the experimental hop on there so that we don't have to change the label every time we make a new beer. I mean, it'll be the same beer just with a different hop, and it's gonna say like, see the bottom of the can for the hop variety used in this beer.
This says the same thing, just so people know. Mosaic says the same thing. Get vaccinated.
It says get vaccinated.
And then if the hop turns out well, you should write into HBC and tell them to call it Papyrus for Turn the Page.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The virus.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be good marketing or not.
I don't know.
I think he said papyrus. Papyrus. Yeah, which can design brings me to Windswell, which is the one that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, which has an awesome. So kudos to your design. I don't know if is it a freelance designer or you work with an agency, or you don't have to tell us who it is, but.
So we worked with an agency and now we are working with her as a freelance on a freelance basis. Yeah.
Well, kudos to her. She's done an awesome job. I love the can design. Windswell is my favorite by far so far. And when we talked about it, we
beer
talked about
or label. Or both.
Label for sure. It's a close tie right now between this and Supernova. That was delicious. I really like that a lot.
You like the double. You like the double IPAs.
I'm a big IPA guy for sure.
Yeah.
But this can design is awesome. We talked about the tattoo thing, and I was like, "This looks like this could be a good tattoo idea, right? The waves and stuff." And I heard that's what sparked the conversation. Apparently, you used to be a surfer, which led to kind of the inspiration, or used to be. I guess you're never not a surfer once you are a surfer. So,
yes.
I guess in Charlottesville, it's kind of hard. But so any new tattoos inspiration from your beer?
I mean, I want to know where you thinking. Like, I kind of stole it when you said that. I was like, oh, that would be a cool tattoo, and I'm like, well, where would it go? Like, how would it, like? I haven't figured that part out yet. That's the hard part.
Well, I've already got some wave action here on my arm. It's kind of hard to see.
Okay.
Here, but that nice big wave and mountains.
Oh
in the
yeah,
background.
yeah. There's mountains in there too. Like
it's
the
just
ocean
it's
and
kind
the mountains.
Symbolize that I'm from the mountains and now I live at the ocean or on the coast. So kind of cool.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did you get that done in Virginia Beach?
Yep. Yeah, we can talk about tattoo shops if you want to, since if you ever travel back here. But yeah, I mean, it seems like you kind of talked about this already, but it seems like so much of owning and operating a brewery, especially for you, like you're doing dual careers. Essentially, you're working still a couple days at the hospital, but also running a business. Like so much of that comes from feeding your passion, essentially. But at the end of the day, you're also running a business. So we've kind of talked about creative, unique beers and things like that. Is there anything in particular that helps, you remain competitive with the beer landscape? And like, has that changed at all over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, dude, craft beer is so competitive right now. When we first started, we were like, we don't want to get into distribution. Like, we want to build a model where we can just have our tap room and make tons of money and retire in 5 years because we're making so much money selling craft beer.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work out that way. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but yeah. I mean, we started distributing. We started distributing about a year and a half after we opened up. Did all draft. We just started doing cans about a year ago. Actually, timing worked out pretty well because it was like right before COVID hit. We were canning, and that couldn't have been a better timing. But I mean, just like we didn't really want to do distribution because we knew, how much competition there was out there. There's so many beers, so many good beers, so many good Virginia beers, so many good Charlottesville beers out there. Fortunately, there's also a lot of people that like beer out there, and there's a lot of people out there that want to try different beers. And I think the average person now is less likely to go to the grocery store and buy the same beer every time. They're going to go see try something new. But at the same time, you got to make your product stand out, among hundreds of other products. Wegmans we have a Wegmans in Charlottesville, and that's like our biggest retailer right now. And every time I go to Wegmans, I'm like, God, there's like so many beers here. And fortunately, they sell a ton of beer, so like we get a good portion of that. But like you said, label design is huge. Like, you gotta I know so many people that just like, I pick a beer based on its label. Like, if it's a cool label, I'm gonna buy it. They might not buy it again if the beer sucks, but like, if the beer is like decent, they're probably gonna buy it again because it has a really cool label. So there's just so many factors in. Like, you can make the best beer out there, and if no one knows it's there, like, you're not gonna do well. So it's challenging to kind of stay relevant and make people know that you're there. And it's like a constant. You just have to constantly be working on getting your name out there and getting people to see you. So it's a big challenge. That's why I'll be happy when we can get the taproom business back to where it's going. I mean, we're going to continue to push distribution, obviously, because there's no ceiling to that. We can only have a certain number of people in our tap room, but the sky's the limit with distribution. So we're really hoping to grow that side of the business, and we're hoping to bring back the tap room side of the business to where it was pre-COVID and beyond, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, right? Everybody's kind of crossing their fingers, just kind of hoping all these vaccines get out there and we can get through this.
Yeah.
And go ahead, AJ.
I was just going back to the label thing and being competitive and getting people to notice you and things like that. Like, literally, I work in marketing, so like visuals is a big thing for me. And obviously, in this like social media economy that we live in, I mean, obviously, look at our Instagram page. You'll see I take a picture of basically every single beer I drink and post it. Obviously, we have a craft beer podcast, so it makes sense. But people, even just beer enthusiasts, there are so many beer enthusiasts on Instagram that just photograph every beer they take, every beer they drink, rather. And label design is one of the biggest influential factors in what makes people grab something off the shelf. Even we have Wegmans as well. That's one of my main go-tos for craft beer and trying new stuff. And I took my whole family goes there. My 5-year-old. One day we're walking through, he's like, Dad, you should get that one that's got a sweet chameleon design on it. I don't remember what the brewery was, but it had this awesome chameleon like foil label on it, and he loves like any kind of lizards or amphibians. He's like, you should get that one for me. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll get it. I don't remember what it
So
was.
was
It
the beer
wasn't
any good?
it wasn't that great, honestly. I don't think I'll get it again, but at least he was happy that I
You
picked it
bought
up.
that 1 4-pack, yeah.
It was a 4-pack, yeah. So,
Yep.
but you guys have great design, so kudos again to your designer for sure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then again, like you said, if the product isn't there, you can have the best design in the world, but if your beer sucks, you're not going back for it. And I think you guys have a pretty good combo, man. I think you got great design, and your beer is pretty excellent. So I think it's great.
Thanks.
So we've pretty much hit our hour, but I got one more question.
Man,
I think we
already?
got a couple more. Yeah, I know, right? Always goes fast. It really does. So if you could just quickly give us, what is one piece of advice you would give someone who's thinking about starting their own brewery or thinking about making a career change to get into the industry?
Do your research. I mean, it's all about, like, this is a business. Like, I knew that going into this, with so many people that love brewing that want to turn a career into it. Like, so when we first started the brewery, I was pretty much the only employee. We had some bartenders, but like I did all the brewing. And like now I've thankfully gotten to the point where I have 2 assistant brewers, or brewers assistant brewers, because I'm busy running the business. It's like that's what you're doing when you're starting a brewery. You're opening a business. You're not brewing as a career. If you want to do that, you go get a job, at the local brewery down the street as a brewer. It's a commitment. It's a lot of work. I have no regrets. Like, I love every minute of it. I've kind of enjoyed the transition from like just brewing to doing more like, growing the business while, managing the business and not actually doing all the brewing. But I think just like knowing what you're getting into is the biggest thing, because you get to see so many people that just like, start a brewery and don't really know what they're getting into, and you're going to be disappointed if you think that it's just going to be brewing beer and making money.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I never before this I never really saw myself as a businessman, but I kind of like it, and I'm learning so much along the way, and I hope that I can continue learning more and growing the business. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. So do your research, make sure you understand that it's not going to be a walk in the park, and it's a business. And
Right.
yeah, gotcha.
Right.
Be prepared.
You can't just make what you want to drink. You got to make what everyone else wants to drink, which most of the time is what I want to drink. But like, every now and then I make something where like I'm not drinking any of that, but everyone else is going to drink it, but I'm not drinking it. So you gotta not be so hard headed to where you're only going to make what you want to drink.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's in today's beer world, there's some interesting stuff out there, man. A lot of interesting stuff. I don't remember even. I was just in Total Wine a couple of days ago, and to pick up some Random Row, make sure I had some for the show. And you see some crazy stuff every time you go in there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess you kind of already talked about Turn the Page, the New England IPA you guys are brewing this week. Beyond that, anything that we should look out for? Any upcoming releases, events, things like that?
I mean, the big thing I'm working on right now, like, did I also tell you that I'm a restaurateur? I don't know if I mentioned that.
No, you didn't mention that. I've seen a lot of food on your page, though.
Oh my gosh.
So we're working on, we're going to be opening up a pizza restaurant in the brewery. So we're partnering with Billy Pie. So I believe that they are, I don't know if this is like common knowledge or not. I don't know if the wrong person's listening to this or not, but I believe he's working on making a deal with maybe O'Connor out in Norfolk.
Oh, wow.
So it's a company based out of Richmond. Have you guys been to Triple Crossing in Richmond, the Fulton location, Triple Crossing? So they've got a pizza joint in there. That's Billy Pie. He also has a spot at Basic City in Waynesboro on the other side of the mountain from us. So we're partnering with him. We've got a pizza oven, a brick oven pizza that's in the brewery right now that we're working on getting installed, and we're hoping to have that up and running next month. So that's been taking up most of my time the last couple of weeks. So we're going to be going from a taproom brewery to a brew pub restaurant. And we'll have brick oven pizzas, hopefully sometime in April. So that's the big thing that we're working on that we're going to be announcing probably next week. So it's kind of a sneak preview to you guys, but
awesome.
We'll be announcing it to the public next week. So kind of exciting.
Well,
We've got beer wise, we release new beers. Like I said, new beers once a month or every other month, but then we kind of bring back seasonal stuff pretty regularly. So trying to think if there's anything. We've got our grapefruit IPA coming out next week is the newest release that we've got coming. So we do that. We haven't done that one in a while, but that one's been pretty popular. So.
And that'll be distributed to like Total Wine and whatnot, or
maybe it might come to. So we have a distributor out in Hampton Roads. He actually supplies the Total Wine out there. Do you guys just have the one Total Wine out there? I'm talking to you, AJ, because you have the Alaskan. I don't think it's going to be up in Northern Virginia because that's a different distributor. Our Virginia Beach distributor does kind of get some one-off stuff that goes to Total Wine. So, like, you wouldn't have Supernova in Northern Virginia, but you've got it in Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. So you might see the Grapefruit Method IPA in Virginia Beach, but you probably won't see it. You won't see it in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we've got our sour that we're brewing next week. We're calling it Sour Wop. It's a white peach apricot pineapple sour. So
that sounds so good too.
So is that a pop culture reference?
Just Google what does WAP mean.
No, don't. It
means
no.
White peach apricot pineapple is what it means.
That's what it means. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. White apricot peach pineapple. We'll go with that.
Man.
We'll go with that. That's great. I can't wait till everything opens back up and I can travel back down there because I'd love to come down there and grab a beer and a pie. That'd be awesome.
Man.
It's gonna be so weird, like seeing people sitting at a bar. Like it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it will be.
Just like, but I can't wait.
We've interviewed so many people now, so many different brewers, and like we just want to. I wish we could do this in person. Like we need to get the gear, we need to get rid of the masks and the COVID, and do these things in person because it'd be awesome just to join you guys for some beers in person, obviously. But
hopefully we can do it soon.
Yeah, so everyone out there, keep your eyes open for the say it one more time. What was it? Billy's
Sour
Pies.
Wop.
Well, Sour Wop and the pizza. What was the pizza called again?
Billy Pie.
Billy Pie.
Billy
Awesome.
Pie. Yeah.
All right.
Billy Pie.
Nothing pairs better with beer than pizza. Maybe chicken wings, but also pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Turn the Page coming out next week. So
Turn the Page. That should be
awesome.
Both that you guys should both have access to that one.
Cool.
The Turn the Page.
I'll keep an eye out.
I will definitely pick it up.
So I guess that brings us to the end here. So if you're local to Charlottesville or just passing through, make sure to check out Random Row Brewing. It's in Charlottesville. If you want to learn more about Random Row Brewing Company and see what they're pouring, head to randomrow.com or check them out on Instagram at Random Row Brewing. Anything else you want to plug while we're here?
you covered everything pretty good there. That was awesome.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Have fun,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Thanks so much for joining us. And for everyone out there listening, thanks again for checking us out for another episode. Make sure you head to our YouTube channel to check out our beer reviews, including the Windswell from Random Row Brewing. And stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have more of their beers on soon. And then until then, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Cheers.